morning, everybody. What it do? Welcome to another session of history that we may not know, information that we may not be privy to. This time, I want us to head all the way to Little Rock, Arkansas. Back during this time, Little Rock, Arkansas had a little place known as West 9th Street. The reason why West 9th Street has tremendous history to it, it was another version of a Black community that we seen uprising, flourishing, and really having a lot of strength and growth and development post enslaved people being free in America. This community began to flourish in the Reconstruction and after slavery era. This community was born after the emancipation and also after freed Black slaves got free. Half of the population of Little Rock at the time came from the North. I want y'all to remember this. A lot of free Black people that ran to the North to get away from, slavery and emancipate themselves. When they heard about these thriving communities such as Tulsa, Durham, and other areas like that, they began to run back to these communities to seek refuge because they knew I was surrounded by Black community. I would have a good job every day. It was flourishing, and there was a lot of opportunities and things to do when the North was still pretty much segregated at this time. The reason why this was such a big issue, I want you to think of how they went around the times. And one referencing thing I want y'all to remember is Jim Crow of the South had a different name. It was called Thomas Daddy Rice. That was the names that really championed the energy and how Blacks at that time used to discuss it. One reason why this area began to thrive more and more was due to the Plessy versus Ferguson decision. Plessy versus Ferguson was a court decision that really implemented Jim Crow starting to go on in the South. That decision had a landmark case to say that at that time, racial division in America, everything needed to be separate but equal. So that's where the whole Black water fountain, white water fountain came from, or at the proper time, Negro versus white. That landmark decision really infused Blacks to work with each other and develop their kid communities more and more. Especially around this time, it was so much more development going on and it was so much more stronger and things going on. Another interesting fact that came about in that Arkansas study, there were 6 political leaders that were voted into Congress and leadership roles in politics. There has not been 6 in Arkansas since then. Let me repeat that again. Around this post-era movement where it was Jim Crow, lynchings, high racial discrimination, worst on Blacks, they were so unified that at that time in Little Rock, Arkansas, they elected 6 political leaders from their community during the Reconstruction era. The reason why that was so strong was because the Blacks at that time wanted to show and prove, hey, we're with each other, we're ingratiated, we're a strong society, and we're pushing our community forward. They also knew that the mindset that politics is warfare. A lot of us tend to lose that mindset to this day, but politics is so strong and entrenched that we need to be active in the political process. It was one big venue that was sort of like the Cotton Club in New York, but it was their version in Arkansas called the Taborn Hall. If you ever reference something called the Little Green Black Book, Little Green Black Book was a way that many Blacks traveled around this time and during that era. This book references how Blacks at that time went to cities and knew where to stay at safely. So they had their own economy separated from anything that white people had going on. So Taborn Hall in Arkansas was when you had a lot of guests, a lot of poets, a lot of talent, all going through Arkansas to perform, to generate income. So I like to give an example now. Mind you, they had their jazz and blues singers at that time that would come down. People from the smaller areas that were sharecroppers and doing things like that would literally migrate to know to go inside that town to see these live performances and venues. The businesses in that area was completely self-sufficient. They had their own pharmacies, they had their own dream room ballroom, and they also had what's known as the Chitlin Circuit. The Chitlin Circuit was really known for comedy back at that time. It was really niche comedy that Blacks really enjoyed, and we saw that a lot amongst comedians coming around during the 80s. That really spurred from the Arkansas era. Another thing that really broke it down how that area began to thrive and began to get so prosperous was because the economic union and how they spent money with each other. The reason why 9 West Arkansas started to see depletion, due to my research I've learned, was because of desegregation of schools, the urban renewal programs, which we will dive later on to another video, and also the Eisenhower Interstate Program. Some people really don't know that the highway systems in America had a racial undertone to them. Majority of the highway systems, again, as I reinstated in another video, were built to go through prominent Black communities. Just think about any metropolitan highway in the city you may live in. You will notice that highway systems are built in a very singular structure to go right through them. I'm not saying that a lot of these issues are not spurred from different resources and different things, but I will say something powerful I also read in my research, quoted on the Arkansas movement. If you ever look back to why one individual people tend to struggle more than others, and why the problems are so problematic and why Black people still tend to struggle, all of them in different types of areas, no matter where they're from, tend to have the same struggle. That's not a coincidence. Just something to think about, something to meditate on. Again, it was good to give you that little bit of history lesson. I try to give it to you in a short, sweet way so you get something that you could digest and write about. My research has always been done. I try to do at least 3 to 4 credible researchers doing scholarship notes. The reason why I think this is so important is I think we all need to be able to learn this and talk about these things. Me coming from a Black household and a HBCU and lineage, it wasn't taught as much. But one thing I want to know is whenever I want to teach something, I want to make sure I can give it to somebody else so they can use it and make it profitable. Remember, history is always cause and effect. You learn what the cause was, you can see what the effect is later down the road. Again, I'm checking out, baby. Another history lesson on Dreamwell, West Arkansas, 9th Street. Peace.